Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Assistant Room podcast. If we haven't met before, or if you're only just joining us, I'm Jess, founder of online PA lifestyle platform, The Assistant Room. Throughout this podcast, we will be digging deep into the lives and experiences of some of the top personal and executive assistants in the UK and beyond. For our second episode, I sat down with Andrea Robson, EA to CEO and exec team at digital agency Tribal Worldwide, based here in London. As someone who inspires me every single day, and with her infectious energy and the incredible drive she has to keep going even when things are at their very toughest, Andrea is officially one of the coolest people I know, and is someone who can motivate and influence us all to be the best we can be. Okay, so welcome.
Hi.
To episode 2 of our podcast. So let's go straight in and let's talk about how you got to where you are today, because you initially graduated from university with a dance degree. So did you ever think you were going to be an assistant?
You know what, this is funny. On the way in today, I was thinking about this. If you'd have asked me as a teenager or something, I would never have said I would have been an assistant in London. And then I thought, wait a minute. I remember when I was at junior school, I'd go to my dad's office. He had a little family solicitor's business, and I'd help his secretaries while I was waiting to go home. So I would help with the filing, I'd pretend to answer the phones. So maybe I was actually destined to be an assistant without actually realising it. So yeah, I've always danced since I was 3. You know, did ballet classes, tap, the whole shebang, did pantos, musicals, a lot. So I thought, I'm going to try and do it professionally. So I studied it at university, which was like half theoretical, half practical. And it was pretty full on. You'd be in there every day. If you're running late, the lecturers would call you up. So it wasn't a skiving off course that some of my friends thought I was on. And it was good fun. And then after that, I kind of wanted to go into the more commercial route. So I did a musical theatre course. And that's when I moved down south. And from then, I was lucky enough to dance professionally. So I've been in pantos and some music videos. I've done backing dances and trade shows, a lot of random things. But I ended up being an assistant because while I was dancing, my ex at the time played football with a guy from a temping agency, and he got me a job. And my first role was actually in the building that I'm in now on a side reception. It was a little random little reception role. And so I temped there on and off. I temped at some branding agencies, PR agencies, some other ad agencies. And, it was great to see kind of what was out there. And it was totally a different world that I knew or even knew existed, to be honest. And the place that I'm at now, they offered me a full-time role on reception. And they said they loved the fact that I was a dancer and they'd be more than happy for me to go and do dancing jobs as long as I, gave them a bit of notice and got cover. So I stayed on reception, it was called DDB at the time, for a few years while I still did my dancing, and there was 2 of us on then. Recession came in, they got made redundant, it was just me working like 8 till 6 every day. But you know what, I loved it. And it was a good starting point because I got to know how the agency run, got to know the CEO, the global CEO, and then my dancing days kind of fizzled out a bit, as it does. So I moved into a team assistant role for Volkswagen account. And so that was my proper PR role. I was super nervous because I didn't really know what I was expected to do. And I did mess it up in the first week, totally messed up a client presentation. But to be honest, even though I was so upset about it, cried my eyes out and felt really bad because I realised, don't try and struggle and, actually ask if you're struggling or worried, ask someone. I was there as a team assistant and learned the ropes from another PA who worked alongside me, and did that for a few years. And then my current boss asked me to be his PA as there was a merger in the business and, things changed around, people made redundant. And he asked me to join this part of the agency, which is called Tribal. It's a digital creative agency. And so, I've been there ever since, and I've seen it change a lot over the years.
Do you miss dancing?
I do. I do, yeah.
Are you that person on the dance floor at sort of family parties and weddings that are completely busts out all these amazing
not at the
dance
beginning,
moves.
Not at the beginning, but then once I'm on it, you can't get me off. Totally.
God, we've all got that embarrassing uncle, haven't we? Who does a bit of dancing. But...
And I'll be up there with them at the end.
Team effort. So 6 years at DDB, so the larger group.
Yes,
or
that's right.
The mothership.
Yeah.
And then you transitioned over to where you are at the minute, and you've been there for over 7 years.
I know. I don't feel like it's been that long. It's so weird.
It goes really quickly.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It really, really does. Like, I know you have those days where you think it's, oh gosh, it's dragging, but no.
Yeah.
So long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in both of those roles, you've looked after more than one person.
Yes.
So
right.
How do you manage multiple execs, conflicting priorities? Because in my experience as a PA, when I've looked after more than one person, they all think they are more important than the other one at some point, and they all want your attention all the time, just on them.
Yeah, no, totally. I do feel quite lucky at the moment. So I look after the CEO and then the exec team, which is 5 of them. And I also look after the general part of tribal, as in when there's travel needing to be booked. So I am multitasking central all the time. But I think, you know what, I just try to be as unflappable as I can, and I look like I can do this. I try and be as calm as possible, and I'll catch up with each of the execs and my CEO daily, of course. And then when they give me a task, I just try and look at what they need. I look at all the other things that are on my plate, and I just try and prioritise. And if there's a deadline, I try and, figure out which is and who I think is actually in need of it more than the next person.
Yeah.
And I know I think one of the key things is communication as well. If you know you're not going to get something done that, one boss has said, because you need to do something else urgently for another one, I always try and say, look, I need to do something else first. I will try my best and get it done today, but I'll keep you in the loop. So I think communication is always key with that, to be honest.
Yeah, completely. I think that's such an important thing that so many PAs need to be okay with, to know that you can't always get everything done.
No, it's totally
and
true.
That's fine.
in a really weird way.
Yeah. Your move to tribal was your first step up to a CEO role, or looking after a CEO.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So what was that transition like? Because that must have been quite scary.
Yeah, I was pretty anxious to begin with. And, I knew I'd be talking to, global people and other CEOs in other countries and, top clients and things like that. But then I did know my boss, so I think that helped. So I knew him, he'd worked at this agency in another role for quite a long time. So when I was on reception, I remember him emailing me to book meeting rooms and things like that. So I think that kind of helped because I knew who he was. Yeah, so I think, it's getting to know your boss and having that trust and that respect for them. And I think that definitely helped with my transition because, I used to chat to him like a normal person. I wouldn't be, all yes, sir, no, sir, and things like that. I tried to be... I don't think I'd be able to be a corporate PA. That's totally not me. But I try to be as open as I can as well. And he's pretty, he did open up to it. And a lot of people think he's quite unapproachable. I don't think that whatsoever because I guess I see another side of him. Yeah, that's definitely a key, is just be open and chat and have that respect.
Yeah. There are so many PAs, I think, who miss out on amazing opportunities to work with incredible bosses at amazing companies, and it might be their dream job that they've gone to an interview for, but there's a really strong opinion, I think, within the industry that you have to have an immediate click with somebody for that job to be right for you. And there are so many people who have to spend a lot of time and effort nurturing that relationship.
Yeah.
To be able to get to a point in however many years where they can say, I know that person like the back of my hand, or I would never leave ever again. So do you think it's important to have that immediate click, or do you think you can just create that between you after a period of time?
I think you can create it. I think as long as... you can definitely create it. I don't think you don't necessarily have to have that click. I think you just have to have that confidence in yourself, which I know is quite hard because it is quite anxious moving into high-up roles. But be yourself, be confident. Make sure they know who you are.
100%.
And then you can totally, get to know a person, and then that connection's going to come.
Yeah, I suppose it's like any relationship,
I guess
really,
it's like
isn't it?
Knowing a friend for the first time, isn't it, in a weird way?
That's true.
Isn't it? You get to know them a bit.
Yeah,
it's really like dating as well, isn't it?
It's like dating.
Isn't it? Yeah, because you end up getting to know everything about them, but you're always a bit nervous in the beginning.
But would you really date the people that you work for? Probably not. If they were on Tinder, would you swipe right or left?
Not current. Mind you, I must admit, my current boyfriend was one of my previous old bosses. So
was he?
He is, yes. We've been together 6 years now, so it's all good.
Well, it obviously works.
It works.
So let's get a little bit deeper and let's talk about the big C.
Sure. Yeah, so it was a few years ago. So in November 2016, I was diagnosed with bowel cancer. So it's a cancer that you don't really relate with a girl under 50. It's usually an old man's disease. That's what everybody always thinks. But yeah, in 2016, I'd increasingly become quite poorly and spoke to my doctor quite a bit. And we thought it was something else that I'd previously had. Fortunately, it wasn't. I got even more ill and I was actually admitted into hospital because I was so poorly, and I did various tests and that's how they found out. But you know what? It's like a lot of people say, you put down the tiredness to working so hard, because currently that year in Tribal, it was their 20th year anniversary. So I was organising a big, massive event for old and new and current employees and clients, and I threw myself into it, and it was just a generally busy year, and I was also, socialising quite a bit, so I just put it down to burning the candles. Yeah, it was a weird time. So after I was diagnosed, it was probably a whirlwind. It was like a total roller coaster, whirlwinding roller coaster of all things, and had various tests and met with surgeons, nurses, and I had surgery to remove my large colon. So now I've got a stoma bag. So apologies for being blunt, but I don't go to the toilet the normal way. And then I had about 7 months of chemotherapy as well. And I must admit that going through the active treatment, I was probably more, I can get through this, I can do this, because you've got that, you can see the end, I'm going to be all right, so I'm going to be all right. And then I must admit the recovery part of it was probably one of the hardest, like physically and mentally. So I did have to take quite a bit of time off after I finished active treatment. So I was actually off work for, it was about 19 months.
Yeah.
So it was a long old time.
And how did Tribal support you through that period?
You know what? I feel incredibly lucky with my work. So, funny enough, my boss, he was probably one of the first people that knew about it after my family and a couple of best friends, because obviously I needed to tell him what was going on. And from that moment, he was super supportive. He actually told HR what was going on. He started the process of, me being off for a long time and help and start the process off with insurance, because I luckily work for a global company, so I actually got paid throughout that time. And during the whole period, he would often text me, he would, tell me what to watch on Netflix, and we'd meet up every now and again. And if I was up to it, we'd meet up always in Soho House, because he was a member there and I never got to go, so it's always like a little excitement for me to go in. At the beginning, I didn't want anybody else in the company to know, so nobody knew until probably about a month after surgery. And then I said to him, if you want to tell some of the execs and the management, that's totally fine. And I must admit, I ignored HR quite a bit at the beginning because I didn't really want to deal with the whole work thing. My boss was kind of it was a different thing. And there was quite a few change around with people who were looking after me from a HR perspective. But luckily, I've had one for the past year, and she's helped me through my phase return as well. And so I was on a phase return for about 4 months until I became full-time again. And it was super nerve-wracking to go back to work. I guess you might feel the similar way if you've been on maternity leave as well. Even though it was a new role, I knew there was some new execs there. There was a lot of new people in the agency, and I bet they were thinking, "Who's this girl waltzing in?" and trying to take over and things like that. Yeah, it was really nerve-wracking to come back, and I must admit I didn't really want to. I kind of was fine to see my boss, but not the wider people. But after a few days, it was okay. Everybody was super lovely. I had a weekly HR catch-up to make sure I was okay. My boss and the other execs were lovely and kind of, they've, even to this day, because I struggle now, to be honest, with fatigue and things like this, and I've got so many appointments still going on, and they're great. They, if I need to work from home, as long as I, text them and say, I'm working, but I might be at home, or if I need some time off or I need to leave early, actually really good. I feel incredibly lucky because I've heard horror stories from other people.
And I think when you talk about how the relationship that you have with your boss and how that was maintained throughout your treatment, I think that just is a complete testament to how strong your bond is.
Yeah.
In terms of your working bond, but also that, I suppose it goes back to the relationship that we were just talking about. You've also created more than just that PA boss relationship. It sounds like you're like friends almost as well.
Kind of are, I guess, in a way. Yeah.
Which is lovely.
Yeah. And another thing coming back to work after all that length of time is they'd had a temp throughout.
Yeah.
I was so petrified that they'd done a better job than so I was kind of like, oh gosh, what if they change? What if they do it? What if they do things differently? But luckily, I didn't need to worry. They were great, but
good.
It was a funny old time.
Considering you have been through a really, really dark period and you've obviously dealt with it brilliantly and you've had all the support from everyone around you as well. For other assistants who may find themselves in a situation where the shit completely hits the fan, what would your advice be to them in terms of dealing with that when it comes to their responsibilities at work?
So, it doesn't necessarily mean if you're having a bad time, if it's whether it's illness or mental health problems or you're having a problem with a partner or any family issues or just you just feel rubbish, whatever. You know what? I think personally for me it was to be open. And if you don't necessarily want to speak to your boss, I think you need to have one person. If you know one person in your company where you work that you can talk to, whether it be a colleague of the same level, whether it be a HR person, somebody in a different department, even someone that you've made friends with, I think you need that one person that you can talk to. And if you're in the office, you're having that time, give them a little nudge, give them a message. And then, they're going to know that you need a hug. They need to take some pressure off you or cover you or, you need to find that trust and respect for somebody else and just be open, because I think that does help, even though it's going to be crazy hard, especially at the first time, to say you're struggling with something. You definitely need someone to support you while you're there. So definitely try and be as open as you can. Obviously, you don't have to go into all the details, but talk to someone, and it definitely does help. Don't try and bottle it up or hide away from it and pretend it's not happening, because it'll just escalate and you'll just get worse with that.
And so many PAs think that if they do ask for help, regardless what it's on, or they do admit that they're struggling for whatever reason, I think there are so many people who think if I admit that I'm not having a great time, my boss is going to think that I'm a bad PA because I can't handle X, Y, Z that's going on. And it's so...
No, I totally get that.
That's so not true.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. You don't want to think that you're not that superwoman or Superman anymore, do you? You think, oh gosh, I have to be on the ball all the time and doing everything. But, we're only human, and even if we don't think they are too. So somebody will understand, your boss or colleague will understand.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. So if there was one thing that you could change in our industry, what would it be?
Ooh, right. It's tricky. I think, even in this day and age, I think there is still sometimes a bit of not a negative look at a PA, but I never say it with like your exec level, but it's a lot of the middle management. They sometimes think that you're just an assistant and you're just a secretary. Even I've heard that recently.
Oh, really? That word came out again.
And
that word actually means keeper of secrets.
That's kind of cool, though, isn't it?
But it is quite old-fashioned now.
Yeah, I do
it?
think some people think that we're just helpers. I think we're fixers anyway as well, aren't we? But yeah, I think I've heard that, and I've had people say to me, "Oh, are you doing this because you want to be in account management or you want to be a project manager?" It's like, no, I want to be a PA. I actually love this. I don't want to move away into another role. And it's like you wouldn't necessarily say that to an account manager or a business director. You wouldn't say, "Oh, are you doing this because you want to do something completely different?" So I think there is a bit of there still is with some people a bit of a funny way of thinking towards an assistant. Some people don't think that it is a role forever, but it totally can be. Totally can be.
Yeah, and you learn so much.
Yeah, I mean, we run the agencies, we run the companies, really, don't we?
Well, I think I always used to say that, imagine all the PAs went off sick for whatever reason or decided to take a holiday at the same time for 1 week imagine what you would come back to.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
If the printer breaks, that's it. All hell
Who do I
breaks
call?
loose.
What to do? How do I make a cup of tea?
I know. The weirdest thing I think that I ever came up against when I was working in healthcare as a PA, the milk ran out.
Oh, gosh, right.
The milk ran out. And nobody went to get milk. Nobody went to get milk because they only saw it as the role of either the office manager or the PA or the group of PAs to literally walk down the road, 5 shops along, go to the corner shop, pick up a couple of pints of milk and take it back. And we actually had complaints going to our people director saying that there was no milk.
It's crazy, isn't it?
What? I just thought to myself, what has the world come to?
What would you do at home?
Exactly.
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 It doesn't surprise me, though. It doesn't surprise me.
Well, that's it. That's us done.
Thanks for having me.